We have one more. I'm looking for it. Chair calls up Senate Bill 1828 and recognizes its author to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This bill is something that I do take very, very seriously, and I have some fellow San Antonians here that, Sarah Campbell, they may be your constituents or mine. It doesn't matter. They've been here all day because this is very important to them, and it's because of this. A recent poll found that 41% of Americans and 66% of millennials are unaware of Auschwitz, the infamous Nazi death camp where 1 million Jews were killed. 31% of Americans and 41% of millennials believe that 2 million or fewer Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. 52% of Americans wrongly believe that Hitler came to power through force. To combat these shocking findings, Senate Bill 1828 requests that our governor designate a week to be known as the Holocaust Remembrance Week in Texas public schools each year. The purpose of this is to educate students about the Holocaust and to inspire a sense of responsibility to recognize and uphold human value and prevent future atrocities. This bill would ensure students in Texas are familiarized with the facts of the Holocaust by requiring that the Texas Holocaust Genocide Commission that was created by both former Senator Shapiro and Senator Rodney Ellis to create or approve the materials used for the week. Through education, Texans can be vigilant in the fight against hatred and ensure that our youth understands the horrors of the Holocaust and the intolerance that led to it. Mr. Chairman, originally we only had one of our teachers from San Antonio, Miss Lisa Berry, but Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I would like, if you see fit, because 3 of our fellow San Antonians, they've been here all day since this morning, if they would be allowed to testify as well.
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be great.
We won't keep you off local just because you have testimony.
I didn't think you would.
At this time, is there any questions for the author? We'll open up public testimony on Senate Bill 1828, and we will invite Lisa Berry. And she's been patiently waiting on the front row. If you would introduce yourself for the record and give us your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Taylor and committee. My name is Lisa Berry. I have been a teacher for 23 years. 16 of those years I've been teaching Holocaust education to 10-year-olds. I represent myself and 3 other founding advocates for this bill. I am here in support of SB 1828. Empathy, tolerance, and kindness can be taught through Holocaust education. What better time than now to instill empathy in our kids when their minds are still malleable, when violence in schools, places of worship, communities, and the world at large is on the rise. Using the Holocaust to teach tolerance and other lessons of humanity equips our students with the skills to deal with the situations that arise in life, such as school violence. Students learn from the Holocaust how to recognize their own actions as hurtful, and they make compassionate choices. Hitler was one of the biggest bullies ever, and even he started with name calling. An example from my personal experiences of teaching Holocaust education, Andy. He was a self-proclaimed bully, very proud of it. The year after he took my class, he came to me very proud that he stood up and had protected a kid that day from being bullied by multiple students. He said that it was because of me and what I had taught him about how to survive and how to deal with his issues. This is skills-based civil learning through Holocaust education. Empathy, tolerance, and kindness can be taught through Holocaust education. I've seen it take place in my 5th grade classroom for 16 years. In 2007, we began a collection of 6 million pennies to represent the lives lost and give a tangible count to the kids in my classroom. It has spanned 12 years now and 4 school districts. I still come home to find bags of pennies on my porch from students who have gone on and graduated college. Yesterday, I took 130 fifth graders to the Holocaust Museum in San Antonio for a field trip. Many of them chose not to eat that day. They chose not to eat so they could feel the hunger that the survivors felt when they were in death camps. And that is because they have empathy. They heard an Auschwitz survivor give her testimony. They touched her tattoo, a remnant of the evils that intolerance brings. Unfortunately, very few survivors are still with us and can give direct testimony. We are losing our primary sources each day. Teaching about the Holocaust is not just another history lesson. It's prevention. It is a lesson that impacts the world because it impacts how people act and how people react. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Ms. Brand. Thank you for what you do and the difference you make for your students and for our state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. And Senator Menendez for bringing this. Thank you so much for your testimony. I really liked how you brought out that it's not just a history lesson, but that you're able to bring other factors in, the bullying, the empathy, and really let the children experience it. Because, I mean, we've heard many times those who don't remember the past, don't remember history, are destined or doomed to repeat it. And it may not be our Jewish population, but it could easily be someone else. So thank you for your testimony, and thank you for the teaching, the way you're bringing this out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think it's a good bill.
Yeah. Senator Betancourt.
I want to thank you for your testimony, and Senator Menendez, that, and Senator Campbell just said something that triggered a recent memory. Because in Auschwitz, it was a horrible place where all hope was to be abandoned upon entry, literally with the sign said. And there was a priest block in it. And the priest block was mostly Roman Catholics, but there was Greek Orthodox and Episcopal priests too as well. And from time to time, the Nazis would just crucify one of the priests. There was also a period of time where they were trying to sway the Luxembourg bishop to stop his passive campaign against the Nazi state, and they would let people out. Okay, but only, and there's a great movie on this. It's not quite completely historical, but very close to accurate, where they would let the chairman, they would let the priests out, and they would go back home. Of course, there was a debate among the family of trying to escape to Switzerland, but the Nazis made it clear that if they didn't return, there was going to be terrible repercussions at the priest block. And over several times they tried this, and apparently one priest went through this. He was a Luxembourg native, and he decided that he would not try to talk the bishop into stopping his campaign, nor would he escape. He went back to Auschwitz, and they crucified him. So to Senator Campbell's comment, the Holocaust was 6 million out of 7 million were Jewish, people of Jewish faith or background. There was 1 million others. And the brutality of it can never be forgotten, because what we have to learn from this is that the respect for human life has to be paramount in the 21st century, and use every graphic example of why it wasn't in the 20th to make sure that we don't ever forget this, because if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. Thank you, Senator Menendez, for bringing the bill.
Any other questions, Senator Hall?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator Betancourt, Senator Campbell, and I echo what they said. I had the good fortune last summer to visit Israel for almost 2 weeks. We spent almost half a day in the Holocaust Museum, and I thought I knew a lot about it. I was really educated. And I thank you, Senator Menendez, for bringing this bill. I hope Texas becomes a model for the nation in this, because it's absolutely right. And to use this to educate our children in their behavior, to help bring them out with real world examples from a program like this, I think is an excellent idea. And I'm glad for the success you've had.
Thank you.
But this is a good bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator West.
thank you for this particular bill. And as you were giving your testimony, I was kind of playing back in my mind when I was in the 6th grade and living in Germany. And my father and my mother took me to Dachau. And it's still seared in my mind in terms of what that represented. As an adult, I have had an opportunity to go back there. But as my sons and my daughter were going through school and they were going through this history lesson, I was able to kind of tell them, give them a first-hand account of my visit to there. So you're right, we need to make certain that we continue to remember the atrocities that occurred, not only as it relates to Dachau and other concentration camps, but other atrocities that occurred in this world also.
Senator Paxton.
Well, I do also want to thank you, Senator Menendez, for bringing this forward. And thank you for your testimony today. But for also being a living, breathing picture of why we teach. What you said about your student. You didn't teach him something. You changed him. You changed his future. And because you changed his future, who knows how many other children's futures you changed. So thank you. And thank you for your example to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Where's that?
Over here.
I'm sorry, Senator
That's
Menendez.
okay. So when I was driving home and listening to a radio program about the lack of knowledge in our universities amongst our students, it was Sharon Greenwald and Barta Ratner, who were on the radio, who were sitting behind me, who had been here all day with our teacher, with Miss Barry, and they'd like to share their comments.
And they
They
don't have a
put a
registry.
card. I don't know if they put it. They initially, sir, we didn't know what your timeline was, but since they've been here since 11.
Yeah, if we
this
just
morning,
give them to fill out a card.
Yeah, that'd be
to
great.
have them up.
So, is Sharon and Barta, would y'all come up? Okay, there.
Have y'all signed up? They are?
We signed up, but not non-testimony.
Okay, well, come on up. We'll change it over.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you would introduce
I
yourself.
didn't anticipate testifying, but I appreciate the opportunity.
If you would introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Thank you. I support HB 1828, and I thank you.
Your name.
SB.
Oh, and I am Sharon Scharf Greenwald. I am a daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors who made their home in San Antonio, Texas in 1949 after being refugees from Poland and losing all of their family on both sides. I am giving testimony that the Holocaust did exist despite the Holocaust denials occurring around the world. I saw the numbers on my parents' arms. I was born in San Antonio. I'm a Texan, and now I'm a practicing attorney in San Antonio. And I want to thank you very much for allowing me to say these following things. I support HB 1828, which will allow students, I hope I got the number right, which will allow students to understand the lessons of the Holocaust and will allow students to do the following. Learn the significance of events that led to the hate and ashes borne by the Holocaust. Learn how to become responsible citizens. Learn how to uphold the rights of all humans. Learn that discrimination has not ended. Learn not to discriminate against anyone. And learn how to be vigilant and know the signs of intolerance in their day-to-day lives, in their community, and throughout the world. We can only ensure that Texas students are sensitive to basic human values by educating. And one of the education tools should be Holocaust remembrance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Greenwald. Questions? And if you would introduce yourself for the record.
I am Varda Ratner, and I'm here in support of SB 1828. I'd like to thank you, Chairman, and all you members of the committee for listening to our testimony. I'm here representing myself, although I also am a daughter of Holocaust survivors like Sharon. I also serve on the Holocaust Commission of San Antonio, and as does Sharon actually, and I'm also a docent at the Holocaust Memorial Museum of San Antonio, where I lead tours. I also lead activity sessions, and I also speak telling my parents' experiences during the Holocaust. At the museum, we bring in middle schoolers and high schoolers, but the 10,000 or less students that we bring in a year is not nearly the number of people we can reach as if this bill passes, that we could reach, hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever the number is, I don't know. But we only reach a small fraction. But as you have seen, we can teach many important lessons. Some of the other lessons we can teach, that I do teach at the museum, is the dangers of censorship, the dangers of propaganda, which was brought up earlier. That Holocaust denial is wrong. That's out there. Those kids are on the internet. They're going to run into it. That they need to stand up for what is right and to stand up against evil. I don't know what else I can add except to say that my parents would be extremely pleased to see this happening here today, and I thank you so very much.
Well, point in history after the war when they had found these camps, and they made the people around there go tour those camps for a reason, because otherwise the disease had never happened. But unfortunately, those generations, as you well know, are passing on, and the importance of reminding people, yes, this did in fact happen. Here's how it started. Here's how it built to that point. If you let it go, history tends to repeat itself. You don't.
And it has.
That's why you study it, and we do see it in other places already. So that's why I think some of this is so important. Senator Fallon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwight Eisenhower, the 5-star general and the commander in Europe, made them because he said, in not so delicate language, some SOB decades from now is going to claim this didn't happen. So he got the citizens from the German towns to see him and bury the dead.
Yes.
So I can remember as a little boy, and thank you for bringing this up.
Sure, of course.
My sister went to a small Catholic school, and she played basketball. And we would go to the games, and there was a janitor there. And, I was a little kid, 12 years old, and I never liked this janitor because he was a curmudgeon, and he was kind of grumpy, and he had a sour face on it all the time. And
Kind of like some senators.
yeah. And then my mother told me that she said, "Do you see that little tattoo on his wrist?" He was a Holocaust survivor himself. So you can imagine the things and the horrors that he saw in years past. And we just talked about, victims of Communism Day, and you had mentioned that you're going to bring this bill up, and I told you I wanted to support it and co-author it. And, there are 11 million victims of the Nazi regime of the Holocaust, 6 million Jews, but there were gypsies, homosexuals, socialists, Christian activists, really anybody that they could identify as a Jehovah's Witnesses, but anybody identifiable as an opponent of the regime. And there was this, this famous quote that I just
First they came for the...
This is from Martin Niemöller, the Lutheran pastor. He says, "First they came for the socialists. I didn't speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." I mean, that's powerful.
I read that to the students every time.
So thank you for this. And, we talked about if you were a Jew in Estonia after 1919 and you had your freedom, and you were a merchant and you were living their dream, and Estonia was free after 1919. And then the Soviets rolled in 1939 and took all your stuff. And the Nazis came in 2 years later and took your life.
Right.
So we have to remember how lucky we are in this country that these things don't happen because we have a rule of law. And this truly is the land of milk and honey. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, in closing, thank you for the hearing. I just want y'all to know 10 other states have already passed similar legislation, and there are 2 others that are considering legislation now. So we wouldn't be the first. The governor's office already has created, as I mentioned earlier, the Holocaust and Genocide Commission, and we would be coming right into them. We've been in contact with them. We've been in contact with TA. Really, we've worked everything out, and that's why this is all due to the good work of the ladies who have testified here and my staff. And so I want to thank you for this and let y'all know it's pretty important, and we appreciate your attention today.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1828? We'll close public testimony. Senator Campbell moves adoption of Senate Bill 1828. This time the clerk call the roll.
Taylor,
Aye.
Lucio, Betancourt,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Fallon,
Aye.
Hall,
Aye.
Hughes,
Yes.
Paxton, Powell,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
West.
Be 9 ayes, no nay. Senate Bill 1828 sent to full Senate for consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Paxton.
Senator
Senator
Shapiro, I just wanted to acknowledge that my former senator, Senator Shapiro, who was mentioned earlier, is here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Your comments were unbelievable. My kids too would be very proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So we move that to local non-contested.
Let's go.
Senator Betancourt moves to be moved to local non-contested calendar. Is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered. Thank you, Senator Menendez.
Thank you all.
So I've got Senator Powell. Chair calls up Senate Bill 451. We all gather ourselves. Chair calls up Senate Bill 451. Recognizes its author, Senator Powell, to explain her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.